We'll next consider the game of king plus knight. As is now common, each handicapped person is entitled to his own board. At each turn, the player can move either chessman. When a player is unable to move, he loses. The red and blue players are dressed in their respective colors. They start from a pre-selected position with the king on e5 and the knight on f5. Blue makes the first move, and the game continues as you can see. Eventually, it's blue's turn when neither chessman can make any more moves, so the game ends and red wins. Let's now analyze this game. Here's a position which occurred late in that game. King on checkmark at c1, plus knight on circle at f1. We'll use dotted lines to show hypothetical moves that might have happened. Red could have moved the king south from c1 to c0. Then each of the green chessmen would have been on a circle, and red could have played them independently. Whichever chessman blue moved from its circle to a checkmark, red could have moved that same chessman back to another circle. For example, suppose blue next played the knight from f1 to d2. Then blue could have moved the knight from d2 back to the circle at b1. If blue then moved the king away from the circle at c0 to the checkmark at b0, then red could have moved him back to a circle at a0. More generally, from any starting position in which each chessman occupies a circle, the second player can win by responding to each of his opponent's moves by another local move on the same board, returning the just moved piece back to a circle. By this strategy, he ensures that he'll get both the last move with the king and the last move with the knight, and therefore the last move overall. Symbolically, we write that if each summand is a circle, then so is their sum. Let's now analyze the film game in view of that result. The game began with the king on the checkmark at e5, plus the knight on the circle at f5. Blue could have won by playing the king onto the circle at e4. Instead, she made the mistake of playing the king to d4, giving red the opportunity to win by playing the king to the circle at c4, but red moved the knight instead. Blue then moved the king to the circle at c4, giving red the opportunity to win by moving the knight to the circle at f1, which he did. This was now a position in which each of the chessmen occupied a circle, and from which red could have won by always returning to such a position. Since blue now had no winning moves, her choice of moving the king from c4 to c3 was as good as any. From this position, red played his winning move, king to the circle at c2. Blue then played king to c1, reaching the late endgame position we showed a couple minutes ago. As we saw then, red could have won simply by moving the king to the circle at c0. But instead, he played knight to d0, reaching the sum of two checkmarks, a more complicated position whose analysis will defer until a later segment. As it turns out, in this case, blue could have won by playing king to b0, but instead she played knight to b1, after which red won by playing king to c0, forcing b0 and then finally a0. We've seen that, in general, the sum of two circle positions is a circle, meaning that a win for the previous player, but the sum of a circle and a check mark is a win for the next player. So what about the sum of two check marks? Here's an example of two check marks from which the previous player will win. Each of the chessmen has only one possible move. The next player must take one of them, and his opponent will then take the other to win the game. But here's a contrary example. Although the next player can't possibly win by moving from either of the check marks to a circle, he might be able to win by moving one of the men from a check mark to another check mark. In this example, there is such a winning move.